Hi, this is Shui with a review of an insole that's manufactured, designed, and produced here in Korea by a Korean company or a Korean creator. There was a brand called, there still is a brand called Underdog. Various sports equipment, sports wear, and insoles are primarily produced. Now, the brand has improved and evolved a step further. They launched a new, I guess, new sub brand. It's called the nexfit, and this particular model is the nexfit recovery insole. Usually, when it comes to insoles, you get two options. The most generic one these days is the ortholite insole, or some foam material that's very similar to ortholite, but it doesn't have the official ortholite seal of approval, but nonetheless they more or less feel the same. The good thing about ortholite is that immediately you feel it molding to the shape of your foot, but the downside is it molds and it gets flattened almost immediately. So overall, there's a lack of feeling of the insole molding to your foot or your toe shape and hugging. There's a lack of that. There's a good amount of immediate compression and step-in comfort, but that's where it ends. And also, when it comes to ortholite insoles, they tend to try and get fancy and try to print some things on the top layer. So usually you need somewhat of a suede material so that you won't be sliding around, to provide some additional grip and friction for your foot and your toes. But once they start screening and get fancy, this particular top coat is a lot more shiny, shimmery, and slippery. So they try to get fancy and be more limited edition, and that sacrifices some of the function of the insoles. That's what that's what I'm discovering these days in terms of the ortholite insole that's commonly used in a lot of shoes out there. The other option is the EVA option. EVA, of course, it's a little bit denser than ortholite, and the bad thing is it gradually bottoms out. Ortholite springs back almost most of the times, depending on how long and how intense you wear it, but more often than not, it'll spring back to look kind of flat. Maybe they'll have some prints or dirty shadows of the shape of your foot, but they still bounce back. But EVA, they do bottom out. They will form whatever imprint they can on top of, in terms of the top layer of the shoe or the strobel board of the shoe. But the good thing about it is that it actually molds to provide a level of neutrality, and also it hugs your foot, and because it forms to the shape of your foot, you will feel a greater level of comfort than ortholite. Ortholite is very, very superficial. It's like a politician, a good smile and a handshake, but it does not last. The EVA is like a wise neighbor that provides some valuable life lessons or whatnot, or someone you grew up with. It really grows on you, it grows with you, it molds to the shape of your foot. And even though there are parts that bottom out, because there are other parts that remains elevated, it hugs your foot and it molds to the shape of your foot, so it provides a greater level of comfort. Because the insole is not the entire cushioning. The insole is supplementary, complementary to the midsole and the strobel board and whatever cushioning you have. So this is a good complementary material that blends with the cushioning. Depends on what type of cushioning you have. Personally, I found that the EVA insoles work much better with the modern rendition of Nike shoes that have the Zoom strobel or the Air strobel, which is sort of like a cushioning that's protruding right under your foot, and there's the dividing areas between the stitching and the edges of the shoe, which is a little bit coarser and harder and more rigid compared to the part where the air is covering. So what the EVA does is, you can see these areas, these little parts that provides I guess a molding action. So what it does is it neutralizes the pinching portions, and it flattens to provide greater contact with the Zoom Air or the Air strobel that you have. So instead of just a concave, hardened plastic-like bottom, if you have an EVA insole that molds to the strobo board, it actually feels much better. What the Ortholite cannot do is that it's not going to mold to that shape, and is not going to be in that shape to ensure that you're provided with a level of stability and a level of comfort that fluidly goes with the strobo board and the midsole cushioning. So that's something you might want to consider. The polyurethane midsole is what Adidas models used to have when they were sorely lacking cushioning in the midsole. They tried to supplement it with a thick polyurethane insole. This is very bouncy, kind of rigid, kind of thick, and the heaviest insole you can ever find. You could combine like 3 layers of Ortholite and EVA and it'd still be lighter than this, as you can tell by how it just bends like that. And I could hold the 2 layers and it's still rigid. That's how heavy it is. Heavy hangs the head that holds the polyurethane crown, I suppose. So when you need solid level of cushioning, you want this. But these days we do have a lot of shoes with great cushioning that needs the right kind of insole. And now the nexfit Recovery insole, I feel, is a nice hybrid of the Ortholite and the EVA insole. It's not technically EVA and Ortholite. It has a Ortholite approved Ortholite material with it's a little bit denser than usual. And on the top layer, there's a special kind of a spongy foam material developed by a company called a company called Omikenshi. It's a Japanese company. They if you know ASICS, they know what they're doing in terms of providing cushioning or foam material that's tempered in a certain way. What it does, it actually has the property to provide a cooling effect, so that's one plus. But for me, there's only so much you can do in terms of cooling your feet when it's laced up inside a shoe and it's at the bottom of the sole of your foot. The great thing is that the cushioning combination is, once again, like I mentioned, it molds to form around your feet, and you can see there's a level of indentations that shows it's not going to completely spring back, but the Ortholite bottom layer is always there, maintaining its shape, while at the same time the top layer molds to your foot and provides a certain level of sinking cushioning, I suppose, that molds nicely with whatever irregularities you have on the strobo board of the shoe. One clear difference you can see is that the EVA has a lifespan. You can see it dying out with the shape forming. I wore the nexfit Recovery insole for a similar period of time in the LeBron 18s. It provided just as good, if not better, overall complementary cushioning with the Zoom strobo, but you do not see the deformation on the nexfit Recovery. So I think that pretty much sums it up. It's not too high off the ground. It's not too heavy. It's moisture wicking, I suppose. It does not get soggy. And there's a certain level of friction here to ensure that you're stably stationed and not letting your foot just dance around or slide around, skid around on your insole. This is not the cheapest insole out there. It cost, I don't know how much it will cost where you look at it from, but in Korea it costs about close to $20, which is not cheap for an insole, but there are a lot of unique insoles, customized or whatnot, that cost a lot more than that. And this, I feel, it's definitely something you get quite a decent amount of bang for your bucks. This is also designed not just for sportswear, but also for people who wear shoes and need to be on their feet for a long time, like having to wear combat boots, or nurses, or whatever job or occupation that requires you to be on your feet. Just slide this in, and it does not provide like an athletic level of upgrade for your shoe, but it really helps with reducing fatigue. That's what it does when it comes to shoes like LeBron 18, which is loaded with technology, but without the right insole, it's just rigid and irregular to a certain extent. So I would recommend you try this if you get the chance. Hopefully they go on sale further. They do have discounts every now and then. I'll have a link down below on this clip. Check it out. It's impressive because I've been using their products. Formerly, they had the Underdog brand, which experimented with ortholite and boron and various different types of materials. And this, I feel, is pretty much next level in terms of what they've produced over the years.